Hello everyone. So today I want to talk to you all about a subject that the Lord has laid on my heart and that I feel that the Lord has placed some ministry on the inside of me for. The Lord just kind of told me that I need to make this video with an urgency, and I am going to be talking about sex. So I feel that sex is a subject that is not necessarily talked about as much as it should be talked about, especially in the church. A little bit about my story is I decided to save myself when I was a young teenager, and the Lord has honestly, He's helped me to be able to carry that out. I got married a little over a year and a half ago, and me and my husband remained celibate the whole time together. My husband was not a virgin, but I was, and through that time, me and my husband just made that commitment together, and he respected me the whole time, did not try to pressure me anytime at all. So I am here as a testimony that there still are amazing men that are out there and that will wait for you. But in this video, I just wanted to talk to you about some of the harmful effects that a lot of people sadly just aren't talking about. I've had a few people tell me that have had sex that they have mainly been told just don't have sex, and just kind of left with that, and they wish that they would have known the other reasons behind it, because that would have helped them to wait and save themselves from marriage. A few reasons that a lot of people already know about is pregnancy and STDs, and those are, you know, most people know about that. But a few things that aren't talked about but are just as harmful, if not more harmful, I want to talk to you about today. One thing that can happen when you have sex outside of marriage is you can get this thing called a soul tie. Basically, with a soul tie, you're bonded with another person in a way that when you've had sex outside of marriage that is harmful to you. You may have broken up with this person, but yet for some reason you still feel very connected to this person. You can't get over this person. You may not understand why, and it may be because you have got a soul tie with this person. So that is definitely something that can happen when you have sex outside of marriage. Scientifically, what happens, and kind of how the Lord created it to be, is that for a woman, a hormone is released called Oxytocin. And so basically oxytocin is released when a woman has a baby, and when she's breastfeeding, it helps her to bond to this baby. And it's also released heavily when you have sex with someone. Some people call it the love hormone. It makes you feel extremely connected to someone. You just feel so connected to them emotionally, and then when you break up, you don't understand why. Like, oh my gosh, I can't get over this person. I feel so strongly connected to them, and that's because a soul tie could have been created. Which in marriage, the Lord created it that when you get married, you become one with your spouse, and a part of becoming one with them is having sex in marriage. That helps you to become one with that person. So when you are becoming one with someone outside of marriage, it is extremely harmful, and soul ties can happen, and you're just becoming one with all these different people or whoever you sleep with. But for men, during sex, a hormone is released called dopamine. and it can be kind of addicting, like that feeling of the hormone being released. So that is why with women, they feel so, you can feel so attached and just, oh my gosh, I love you, and you're the only person I want to be with, and you just get these extremely strong feelings. And then that's why men with sex usually just want more sex. It's not the same way for them, but men too definitely can develop soul ties as well from having sex, because that is the process of becoming one that is supposed to be done after marrying that person, because that's how the Lord created it. Something else that can happen when you are having sex outside of marriage is it can hinder your communication with your boyfriend or girlfriend or your fiance, even if you're engaged. Sex definitely, the sex can make things cloudy. Communication wise, sex can make everything cloudy when you bring it into a relationship, and it can make things definitely a lot more complicated. When you take sex outside of the equation, you are forced to communicate that with that person. You need that communication. I'm going to tell you, when you get married to someone, you need to be able to communicate well with them. That is something that you definitely need to be able to do, and it's a lot harder to do when you're having sex, because there may need to be things that you need to talk about, but instead of talking about them, you might rather just get in bed with them and hope that things are solved. But that's not how things get solved. You will be forced to communicate when you take sex outside of the equation, or just don't even put it in the equation. And I can say that it honestly has helped my marriage, being able to not having sex before we were married, to be able to communicate so much better, because we were forced to communicate and we know how to communicate effectively with each other. Something else that sex can affect is your emotions. There's been research that those that have sex in relationships before marriage and partake in that are much more likely to become depressed after that relationship ends, and just to become more depressed than someone that was not having sex in a relationship and they broke up. The chances are a lot higher for depression. So one way that I like to think of a relationship is like a cake, like you're making a big cake. So at the bottom of the cake, you need a foundation, and your foundation is the Lord. You definitely need an individual relationship with the Lord. It helps your relationship with your partner to be so much stronger. I am definitely a witness of that. And friendship. You need to be able to have a good friendship as your foundation. So when we're making a cake, you need, your cake batter, your oil, eggs, milk. So you need good communication, respect, to really care for each other, and all those good things that make up a relationship, a healthy relationship. Time together and healthy time apart as well. So then I like to think of sex as icing to the cake, and you don't get to ice your cake until you're married. So essentially, a relationship where sex is involved kind of looks like this. Sex is the foundation of your relationship. So you have the icing at the bottom. You may not even have a foundation, but let's say, okay, maybe you do have a little bit of a foundation, but then you put your icing on top of that. The cake is going to slide right off. Relationship can definitely start to kind of make you sick in different ways, emotionally, mentally, just in so many different ways, to where it's just not as healthy as it could be. So I just want to say, some of you may have partaken in having sex outside of marriage. I just want to let you know that I'm making this video to educate and to help others. I'm not saying this out of condemnation to condemn anyone. Condemnation is from the devil, but conviction is from the Lord. So I'm saying this out of love, and I just want to let you know, those of you that may have had sex already, that you are just as valuable as someone that has chosen to wait. Don't let the enemy make you feel like you are less than, because you're not. And don't let him tell you the lie that just because you've already had sex, who cares? Just keep on having it because you've already did it and you're damaged goods. I just want to tell you right now that you are not, that you still are so very valuable, and you're so precious, and you are still worth waiting for. You are still worth waiting for. So I just wanted to let all of you know that you are still worth waiting for. You're still valuable. The men out there, I would like to let you know, this is for men and women, people of all ages, because people of all ages have sex. This isn't just for young people, but definitely I want to let the men know that you are valuable too. I definitely feel like it's not talked about enough to the men. My husband's a high school teacher, and he tells me like being a virgin for a male in this day and age is extremely hard. It's like something that people take and insult another male with, like, you're still a virgin. But there is nothing wrong with that. That's a very beautiful thing. And I also have heard that people nowadays are saying like, oh, I have this many bodies, and how many bodies do you have? As if a person isn't a human being, they're just a body count. No one is just a body count. It's not a good thing to say, oh, I have this many bodies, oh, I have that, because that's causing damage to a precious human being. And it's not okay. Sex is not just sex. Sex is a powerful thing that the Lord created to be had within the confines of marriage. And when it's had outside of marriage, it has very powerful, harmful effects as well. Just because people are treating it as if it's just sex does not mean that it is just sex, because it's not. It is something that is very valuable and very important in the eyes of the Lord. We should definitely treat it as such. It's not something that's easy, but it's also not as hard when you make up your mind as some people may think. So I just wanted to encourage you all, ladies, that there are still great men out there that are willing to wait for you. And then there are still great women out there that are willing to wait for you as well. So I just encourage you to fight the good fight. And I'll leave you with one last thing. In the Bible, it says that husbands ought to love their wives as Christ has loved the church. So when we think about how Christ has loved the church, that's a powerful love. Like, the Lord died for us on the cross. The Lord is saying that husbands ought to love their wives as the church. That man that is pursuing you should be loving you as Christ has loved the church. That definitely means waiting for you. And those of you that may say, I'm not necessarily thinking about marriage, I feel like relationships are to see if you possibly want to marry that person. So it's definitely something to think about. I'll be praying for you all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Questions, comments, concerns. I love you all, and God bless.